Okay, let's unpack this. Welcoming a new baby is, well, it's intense, beautiful, and just a totally new world, right? And figuring out feeding right at the start can feel like learning a whole new language.
It really can, yeah. Even though breastfeeding is natural, it's definitely a skill, something both baby and the person feeding learn together. It's
Yep.
a dynamic process right from the get-go.
Exactly. And that's why we're diving into some source material today, focusing specifically on, getting through that initial period. Our mission is basically to pull out the key insights, the practical tips to help you understand what might happen and what to look for.
Okay, so starting with the foundation laid out in this material,
Hmm.
the benefits, and they're really quite significant for both baby and parent.
Yeah, definitely. For the baby, the sources highlight breast milk as like the complete food package, perfectly tailored, and it's linked to lower risks for things like SIDs, allergies, infections, that kind of stuff. Plus the closeness, the bonding.
Right. And for the person feeding, the material knows that it helps the uterus contract back down after birth, and maybe even offers long-term pluses, like potentially lower risks for some cancers, osteoporosis.
It's pretty powerful, that biological connection, and it's clear this is seen as fundamental. I mean, the WHO and UNICEF recommendations mentioned call for exclusive breastfeeding for 6 months, then continuing alongside solids.
And another key thing right at the start is understanding how the milk itself changes. You begin with colostrum, that thick, kind of golden stuff. Liquid gold, they call it.
Packed with protection.
Exactly. Then, around day 3 or 4, maybe 5, it transitions. Becomes thinner, whiter. That's the mature milk. But both are exactly what the baby needs at that point.
Okay, so moving into that crucial first week, the sources really hammer home that feeding is totally demand-led. Baby calls the shots.
Which usually means something like 8 to 12 feeds in a 24-hour period.
Hmm.
And yeah, that includes nights. The material's really clear. Night feeds are super important for building and keeping up your milk supply.
Right, don't skip those. And there's often a pattern, isn't there? Day one, maybe quite sleepy.
Yeah, recovering from the birth. But then days 2 to 4, they often wake right up and want to feed, like all the time. Cluster feeding.
And those unsettled nights are actually normal.
Totally normal, the sources say. It's how they crank up the milk production. Then maybe days 4 or 5 feeds might get a bit longer.
Settling in a bit more.
Maybe. And then from day 5 onwards, perhaps longer sleeps. But you've got those growth spurts, too. They pop up, baby feeds more frequently again for a bit, signaling for more milk. It keeps you on your toes.
Yeah. One really useful tip I saw was learning those hunger cues before the crying starts. Crying is actually a late sign.
Definitely. Look for hands go into the mouth, little sucking movements or sounds, fussiness, rooting around. Those are the earlier signals. Catch them then if you can.
So how do you actually know if the baby's getting enough? That's the big question, right?
It is. And the sources give some really practical signs. Nappies are a big one.
Wet and dirty ones. Gotta track those.
Yeah. The material lays out a timeline. First couple of days, maybe only 1, 2 wet or dirty ones. That first stool is dark, sticky meconium.
Right.
But then, by day 4 or 5, you should be seeing maybe 6 to 8 wet nappies, and the poos should be changing, getting looser, yellowish. That's a great sign.
And wait, they lose a bit at first, don't they?
Yep, up to 10% loss in the first few days is considered totally normal. Most babies are back up to their birth weight by about 10 to 14 days.
Okay. And other signs like seeming content after feeds, hearing swallowing.
Exactly. Audible swallowing, not just sucking. And a baby who seems reasonably relaxed after eating are good indicators too.
Let's quickly touch on some practical tips and common bumps in the road mentioned. Positioning and latch seem fundamental.
Absolutely crucial. Getting yourself comfortable, holding baby close, chest to chest, aiming for that deep latch.
Chin to breast, wide mouth.
Yeah, bring the baby to the breast, not the other way around. And the sources say, while the first few sucks might feel intense, ongoing pain usually means the latch isn't quite right. Worth getting it checked. Breastfeeding shouldn't really hurt once you're established.
Good point. And expressing milk comes up as an option too.
Yeah, for lots of reasons. Separation, maybe helping supply, relieving engorgement. The material gives storage guidelines, roughly 4 hours room temp, 48 hours in the fridge, longer in the freezer. Oh, and a big one. Never microwave breast milk.
Right. Heats unevenly, kills the good stuff. What about common issues? Sore nipples.
Often linked to latch, yeah. Feeling like supply is low is another big one. But the sources often tie that to growth spurts. Baby just needs to feed more often, which shows your body to make more. Simple, but hard work.
And things like difficulty attaching, engorgement when breasts get really full and hard, or even mastitis.
Yeah, mastitis is that inflammation makes you feel flu-like, maybe a sore red patch. For all these, the advice is pretty consistent. Keep feeding from the affected breast if possible, and get help, like from a midwife or lactation consultant, sooner rather than later.
Support is key. They also briefly mentioned babies with jaundice needing more frequent feeds, and smaller babies really needing that colostrum, maybe waking for feeds.
And a few quick lifestyle things. Eat a balanced diet, stay hydrated like 6 to 8 glasses of water, limit caffeine and alcohol, wait a couple of hours per unit of alcohol. Smoking can reduce supply, but breastfeeding is still beneficial. Just do it outside, change clothes, and always tell doctors about meds.
What about winding or burping?
The material suggests most breastfed babies don't swallow much air, so maybe don't need it as much, but holding them upright for a bit after a feed certainly can't hurt.
Okay, so pulling all this together, this deep dive really shows early breastfeeding as this responsive dance, doesn't it? It's about the baby signaling needs and the body responding.
Exactly. It's a learning process for everyone involved.
Yeah.
Your baby communicates, your body builds supply based on that demand. It's pretty amazing, really.
Yeah. And through all the details, the cues, the timelines, the practical tips, knowing the challenges, the sources seem to highlight one really crucial underlying theme for getting through it all.
Which seems to be listening, right? Learning to really listen to your baby's cues, listen to what your own body is telling you, and just as vital, listening to and using the support that's available.
That idea of listening on multiple levels to the baby, to your body, to your support network feels like a really powerful way to approach this whole kind of overwhelming but amazing learning curve.